See, I'll give an example. Mahashuta Devi is a fantastic writer, and she has been translated by different people. So one of the best translation is Gayatri Spivak's, but Gayatri Spivak's translation is not enjoyable read because she adds a lot of academic background to the.
It's a very, very interesting observation because this keeps cropping up in the context of many, many translations, and I think Tagore's translations is another case in point for the students who are interested in literature and in translation. So Tagore won the Nobel Prize based on his Gitanjali, which was his own translation, and subsequent translations of Gitanjali read much better because Tagore himself was deeply influenced by Tennyson, and therefore his translation sounds quite archaic and old-fashioned in many ways. Even in early 20th century, it was kind of sounding odd. So the question of dialect that you raised is very interesting. So as a native Bangla speaker, I will struggle to understand all the dialects of Bangla, especially from Bangladesh. Would that affect you in Assam, and how does it affect literatures from the Northeast? And Mr. Kikom was talking about Nagaland. I mean, I believe it's very difficult for each tribe to understand the other in Nagaland too. So how does one overcome those challenges of?
It's a good question. So in case of Indira Goswami, in the original text, she gave a glossary of terms for a couple of words for the Assamese readers. Okay, but then there is a well-known author called Yeshe Dorje Thongsi from Arunachal Pradesh. He writes in Assamese, and then his stories are about Arunachal Pradesh, about the Adi community and what's happening there. And he's one of the most popular writer in Assamese, and he doesn't give a glossary. But but everything that he says, it doesn't need to be a glossary because within the narrative you have the explanations and everything. And when you go on, you pick it up. Because the glossaries are not helpful. You have to, in the process of narration, you have to tell them, okay, this is what happening.
Okay, I'll just shift quite radically to something I know that's quite close to your heart. We were talking about it a little bit last evening as well, the politics of translation. So in India, I mean, do certain languages is there a hierarchy of languages? I mean, languages that are preferred by translators from where they select the words. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a hierarchy, and I can easily blame the mainstream publishers because they are focusing on certain languages, not focusing on other languages. But you cannot blame them because for the mainstream publishers, it's a business. It depends on what sells. So they have noticed that,
better than literature from other languages in India. And I'm particularly interested in the Northeast because, from the British Council, we work quite extensively in the Northeast. We've been working in publishing and in translation for a long time. So tell us about that. How do we get major publishers and international readers interested in literature from the Northeast?
See, the two things, sadly also, okay, I have a long answer to the question. Long answer is, English came to the Northeast later than it went to Bengal or say and the Malayali people are good at reading. They read, they have a reading culture, so they picked up. So English came to Assam and the other states very late. So what's happening is we are still picking up the trade. So compared to Bengali literature and the translation tradition, in the Assamese or the other languages translations process started very late. So we do not have enough translator, A. And B is we do not have enough representation in Delhi to push the work. For example, Dorji sir, he's a brilliant author, and I'm sure his books will really do well in English, but nobody has published it because nobody has translated it yet. it's a shame. So in that case, what happens is, like, see, I think, talking about mainstream presses and depending on the mainstream presses for translation, we need to find an alternative publishing model. And this is something that I am trying to do with Retriever, to, like, as an alternative publishing platform where we do not focus on sales as much as the importance of both, introducing new authors from the region to the mainstreaming, and see how it goes.
I think that is absolutely brilliant, because I'm also aware of the Odia translator Mano Das, who does a lot of this, translating by selecting the literary worth of the work. We have so many students here. Is the job of a translator worthwhile? Is it a viable career?
It is. I mean, like, for the students out here who are thinking of a career opportunity, because, like, I'm sure, like, all of the students know at least, like, 3 languages: English, Hindi, and your mother tongue. And, like, there are a lot of translation happening from Hindi to English and English to Hindi. There are opportunities in literary translation as well as business translations. So, I mean, in future, in the next 2-3 years, you can consider translation as a career opportunity, and it is happening, and, like, the field is really growing.
And that's a very interesting point you made about, most of us being multilinguals with at least 3 languages, if not more. And that, I think, is the way of discovering more and more literatures from India and presenting them to the world stage. Very quick question before we have a few questions from the audience. Do you think artificial intelligence and machine learning translations overtake human endeavor of translation?
Not really. I mean, see, for example, right now, even
not yet, but what will happen in the future? There could be a deployment of, looking at the future, there deployment of AI in business translation of, like, module, or, like, Wikipedia pages, for example. In those cases, there would be a deployment of AI, but when it comes to literary translation, I think I doubt it. Because if you look at, like, it's happening right now. If you look at Facebook, if you are posting something in the local languages, they are automatically translated into English, and the translations are very bad. One. Second thing, translation demands the translator's input. Like, the translator is reading the text, and it is going through the translator's own imagination. Like, it's like I'm telling you a story that I have heard somewhere else. It's not the same thing. It's not the line by line or word to word conversion. There's something else happens. Something magical happens out there that AI cannot duplicate. I think if you talk to people working at the cutting edge of AI, they will contest that. They will say that eventually the machine will catch up. Anyway, I would really like a few questions from the audience. Anyone?
Yes.
Is that there?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Microphone. Not be easier if it's being recorded, so easier.
Okay, so the question is, so you said during translations, you sometimes retain a few terminologies of word from the local text. And let's say, for example, the translation is from a local language to English. Does retaining those words make a complete sense when a non-speaker is reading that?
See, like, the idea is there are 2 things happening. The idea is to want to, the reader understand what's going on, and second thing, also to give a flavor of the place, the locality, and the language. So if you are translating the word, and then you are explaining the word in the context of the narrative, as I said, it works. I think it is important that we should see, for example, again, the whole thing about owning English. Earlier, say 10 years back, I mean, when we were in school and colleges, we are supposed to write like, proper English. But now languages keep evolving. Now we have own the English language that it has the flexibility to add other words, other languages.
I think that's a really interesting example and fantastic question. And again, going back to the Red Samadhi thing, I mean, so the contention that Gitanjali Sri was making with Daisy Rockwell was Samadhi was now a word in Oxford English Dictionary. So why not retain the word? And this is where what you referred to market dynamics came in. So it wasn't so much the translator or the author, but the publisher said that if you retain the word Samadhi, the book will be displayed in a different way. Whereas they wanted the book to be read as an English book. So, how the product, sorry to use the word, but how the book is positioned in a bookshop also comes into play when these decisions are sometimes taken. But this point about English being a very plastic language, encompassing all words gradually, there's both good and bad to that, is quite interesting, because this point that so many Indian words from so many Indian languages are now part of English.
Yeah, just to add what you're saying.
Can I have another question
Yeah.
from there? So far we do see addition of a lot of Indian words, but precisely I would say Hindi getting added to Oxford or now dictionaries. So do we see a future where more terms from the local languages, for example Assamese, also getting to be part of such dictionaries?
Yeah, I'm sure, because see, for example, there has been a lot of interest in cooking among the people right now. So there is this thing, mas tenga, in a very Assamese cuisine. So now it is well known, like from people from other languages, and they call it mas tenga. It's understood. So that means that word has been accepted now. That's one example. So if I write mas tenga in English right now, people will understand. I don't have to give a glossary or a explanation. Again, just to give talking about Gitanjali Sri's Red Samadhi. So what's happening is that that book was published by a UK publisher. So especially for the UK market. So there is a still demand for proper English and stuff. For example, 2 years back, couple of years back, one Karnataka novel was translated to English. The title of the original novel was Khachar Kochar. And the English translation retained the word Khachar Kochar. It is not an English word, but it retains it because you by reading it you sort of get the meaning, and then the word is explained in the context of the narrative. So it is allowed. Nowadays we are we are owning the English language.
I think that's a great point to bring the Q&A part of this conversation to an end. May I request you?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. 1 minute.
Excuse me, I'm not a student, but I just want
Yeah, absolutely. You're part of the audience.
Yeah. Recently, a few years back, I just did a I'm from the Khasi tribe of Meghalaya, and my grandfather had written a small autobiography in Khasi. But I could not read it because I always studied in the English medium, so I had difficulty. Then I thought at a particular time that it should be translated into English so that the story that he had, especially for the younger generation, would reach out to a wider audience. So that is why we, in a very simple way, we got it translated within our own family into English. So now the book is a bilingual. It is in Khasi as well as in English, a compilation. And my question is that I did not get a publisher or anything because it was just sort of, a family affair, and I just printed and we just distributed and released in Meghalaya and, other places. So my question is, do we need a publisher, or how should I go about it with the book?
I think you are talking to the right person.
See, I mean, like, there's a great democratization of publishing is happening in India right now, and like, I am a part of it. I'm happy to be a part of it. But the first thing is Amazon. They, I mean, like, despite their, like, other things, capitalist agendas and everything else, they have been giving a platform for new writers. So you can try Amazon first, foremost. After that, there are a lot of self-publishing presses like Notion Press, like Blue Rose, and all these people. They have a good marketing scheme. So they will make the book available online, and then anybody from all over the world can purchase it. And the third option is you approach independent publishers. There has been a rise of independent publishing in India right now. So we are Red River is one of them. There are a couple of more. There is Norphel, there is Olympics, as we mentioned, Manudash.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of, and what's interesting about these independent publishers is that they're experimenting with the kind of work they publish, because the money is not a important compared to a mainstream publisher. For example, if Penguin wants to pick up a book, they are spending, I was doing some calculation recently, they are spending at least 3 lakhs of rupees on one book. Because they have to pay their employees, marketing and all these things. So when they pick up a manuscript, they have to consider, am I going to get back 3 lakhs of rupees? But for independent publisher, the cost is very less. So they can experiment and then, work it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Also, ma'am, so reach out to independent publishers. So from India UK Together Season of Culture, one of the 40 projects across India is a fantastic Write Assamese. The name of the project is Write Assamese. So B Books, which specializes in picking up translations and marketing them in English and to European, through Frankfurt Book Fair. They have a fantastic marketing network. So those are the kind of publishers, and have a word with Divya after this. He really knows a lot. So Divya, if I may now turn to you and read from one of your sort of the original Assamese and the translation. I think that would be an appropriate way to end the session.
Okay, so I'm sure there are a couple of people who would know Assamese. Okay. This is a poem by Nilim Kumar, and this book just came out 2 days back. So this poem is included in this book. So I'll read the original first, then the translation. Traffic Zamot. ঘৰৰ পৰা গাড়ী লৈ ওলাই আহোঁতে হঠাৎ মই পাহৰি যাওঁ ওলাই আহিছিলোঁ কলৈ তেতিয়া দৌৰাদৌৰিকৈ মই ট্ৰাফিক জামত সোমাই পৰোঁ তাত মোৰ উচপিচ লাগে আৰু মোৰ মনত পৰি যায় কলৈ মই ওলাই গৈছোঁ বহু মানুহে মোক কয় আপোনাক সেইদিনা ট্ৰাফিক জামত দেখিছিলোঁ হয় কোনে মোক ট্ৰাফিক জামত দেখিছিল তেওঁ মনত পেলাবলৈ মই ট্ৰাফিক জামত সোমাবলগীয়া হয় Now I'll read the translated version. Leaving home in the traffic jam. Leaving home on the car, suddenly I forget where I was going. Then hurriedly I get into a traffic jam. There I get anxious and I remember where I was going. A lot of people tell me, I saw you in the traffic jam today. Yes, to remember who has sent me, to remember who has seen me in the traffic jam, I have to get into a traffic jam. Thank you.
A big hand for Divya Sharma, and thank you Divya for being such a fantastic conversation.
Thank you for great questions.
And thank you, Lubna, Father, for putting this together.
Thank you for having us.
session. The discourse on Indian literature has purged our soul. Before we proceed for our tea break, an announcement for the students. The book Slim Stone, written by Sir Hon Kikon, is available for sale. You can get a copy of it and get it signed by the writer himself. Also, we shall resume the program after 15 minutes. Thank you. The dignitaries can proceed for the refreshment on my right, and students backside.
I request students to proceed to the back of the auditorium for the refreshment. You may have your refreshment and then settle back down in your respective seats within 15 minutes. I repeat, the students' refreshment is on the back side of the auditorium. Kindly go there and have your refreshment and settle back down in your respective seats within 15 minutes. Thank you.
Don't you? Yeah, they will give you the brochure.
Come, Kado.
Huh? Go ahead. Okay, Dhoni ke saath. Dhoni.